Welcome to Big Homeopathy. I'm your host, Sarah Thompson. Hi, welcome to Big Homeopathy. I'm your host, Big Homeopath, Sarah Thompson. So this week I'm taking my quarterly offsite, except it's on-site, but I'm pretending it's off-site by taking long walks where I don't do anything technical or logistical, and generally pacing around my office with a cup of tea and an open journal and no specific assignments. In some ways it's a celebration. I just finished a 90-day sprint. I used something called a best self journal, and I've blogged about this before, but I haven't talked about it in a video, and it's been so life-changing for me that I really wanted to talk about it with you guys. So you set up a 90-day set of objectives and you keep track. And I forgot to bring mine. I wanted to show it to you, but instead we'll have to settle for some of these press photos here. And I'd like to be able to say that I met my specific 90-day targets. And I think I met them in spirit. But a big thing that came out of it was realizing that once I set the target and dug in, that actually things shift. The most important thing that came out of it was that it completely changed the way I saw my day, my week, and my quarter. I went from exercising very sporadically to having a daily martial arts workout first thing every morning. I took on this whole new big project, big scary thing that I talked about last week, which I hadn't anticipated, and that pushed some other things down the list. I developed a daily meditative practice, which I've committed to. I went from feeling like a total failure at managing a bottomless pit of pretend priorities to specking out clear chunks of time to accomplish specific things. I went from losing hours to transitions to finding many tasks and low brain wattage activities that I could kind of chunk in between these much larger creative endeavors. I just went from failing resolutions to making promises to myself and keeping those promises. I went from being in 10 places at one time to being in one place right now, most of the time. I'm not perfect, but this journal has been so effective for me that I actually got an affiliate link, which I put below, but you can buy it on Amazon or you can download their, they have a template you can download and then you can use your own blank journal to follow along. But if you're having trouble creating some systems to get your life in order, I really recommend something like this. And so after 90 days of putting my head down, I need to step back and really ask myself, am I doing what I want? If not, what do I want? If yes, what can I do better? Is there anything missing from my life? What's my inspiration? Who are my mentors? So I'm taking a breather to do that. But there's something else that I am doing at the same time, which is funny, after my little break. It's just that I'm studying very hard for a specific objective that puts me deep into fundamental works in homeopathy, reading Kent, reading Vithoulkas, reading Hahnemann. And one of the things I'm reading is Yasgur's Homeopathic Dictionary, which I know sounds a little strange, but I think it's a great study technique, and here's why. So, of course, the language we use, it constructs the way we think, and it is the way we think. And by seeing what words come up all the time in the classical literature, you can understand what the old homeopaths were dealing with, and you can see what was influencing Yasgur and where he's coming from. And there's also this sort of aspect of time travel where I feel like it transports me to these conversations that these older homeopaths would have been having in their salon, discussing these different cases and pathologies. And it's fun to be in that foundational place while at the same time I'm still reading very contemporary works about diseases that Hahnemann had no, experience with at all. But so one thing that's pretty clear from reading Yasgur's is that skin issues come up a lot. Intense skin issues come up a lot in the old texts. And you might be eating, so I'm not going to do any before or after pictures, but I follow some people on Instagram, homeopaths, who share these before and after pictures of skin pathology, and it's really stunning. So we're going to dip into another study that I pulled out of Dana's book here. Oh, one caveat when we're talking about skin pathology. Homeopathy heals from the inside out. And so if that's our goal, we're not seeking to suppress. And I've been reading this book by Tom Jansen where he talks about the hierarchy of organ systems and treating them in order. And when stuff comes out on the skin, it's kind of the safest place for it to be for us. But it's very understandable that people often will choose to suppress that. And so when I see skin stuff, often it's a result of suppression. It's indicative of something deeper, or during the course of treatment, skin stuff will come out as things are coming up onto the surface and moving out as the deeper pathology is being healed. And in some parts of the world and sometimes in history, people would not suppress things, and so a homeopath could just give a remedy and see that healing. It's a little more challenging with skin conditions now. But now that I've done that responsible thing, I want to tell you about this study. I'm going to find it. It's simple and sweet. It's entitled Effective Treatment of Seborrheic Dermatitis Using a Low-Dose Oral Homeopathic Medication Consisting of Potassium Bromide, Sodium Bromide, Nickel Sulfate, Sodium Chloride in a double-blind placebo-controlled study. And it's linked below. 29 patients were divided into two groups, one group receiving a low-potency combination of homeopathically prepared nanominerals called Lomalux psoriasis, and one group received a placebo. These are low potencies, so even though we know from the early research we talked about that even high potencies have nanoparticles in them, these definitely have nanoparticles in them. But so this was cool because it was a 20-week study, and for 10 weeks there was a placebo group and a medication group, double-blind. And then at 10 weeks, they moved it into an open label study, and everybody, the placebo group, also went on this combo remedy, and I'm going to pop up these results because they're very striking. I mean, you can see that halfway through the study, the homeopathy group was reporting an improvement of 38%, 38.5%, whereas the placebo group had worsened. And then when the placebo group went on the medication, they also improved. So this type of preparation is something that people would buy for themselves in a health food store. It's a combo, it's not classical. But there are a couple of things that I think are heartening about this study. So first of all, homeopathy is not a placebo, it works, blah, blah, blah. We have to keep saying that. And this is interesting, there's an aside. I was listening to an interview with a guy named Safi Bakal, who is big in biotech and not at all involved in homeopathy. But he was talking about something called a false failure, which is when an experiment yields a negative result. And it doesn't mean that the idea is bad. It means that the experiment is flawed. And so we have to be very careful to discern between confirmation bias and only looking at positive results, which we shouldn't do. And Dane Ullman, in his book, he doesn't do that. There are negative studies in there too. I don't talk about them here because we have a limited window and that's not what we're focused on. But distinguishing between that and between studies that are straight up bad and designed to fail. And we need to do good science as homeopaths. And sometimes we don't get the results we're looking for. Sometimes we get results we're not looking for. And we need to take the time to figure out why that is, but not to be discouraged when a poorly designed study yields negative results. So, another thing about this is that this particular substance is that it's what I think of as a gateway remedy. People are going to go to the health food store and buy this for themselves. And Jeremy Sher talks about how we have to keep our patients in the field of homeopathy when they're looking for healing. Getting those immediate results from something like Lomalux psoriasis is the kind of thing that puts it into this person's mind that homeopathy works for me. And then they're going to come and look for homeopath when there's something deeper that they can't manage themselves. And I know, it's more nuanced and it's more subtle than that, and there's so much more to say, but it's big. And what can I say? It's big homeopathy, and it's going to be huge. See you next week.